All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:13. If we can all stand for a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if we can get can I have a motion to allow Jack to attend remotely?
Motion. Second.
And we'll have to do everything by roll call tonight. So Jen?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Welcome to the party, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you for being patient with me. First up are the minutes for December 16. And I have, I think, two comments. On the second page near the end of the first paragraph, it says after 2023, but I think you mean after 2024.
Which section are you looking at? On what page?
Page 2, at the end of the first paragraph.
Oh, first paragraph. Okay. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think you mean 2024, right?
2020 school year, 2021, 22, 23. Oh, the last one would be 24, yeah.
Yeah, because their school year,
Yep.
fiscal year ends in the summer, right?
Yep.
Then at the bottom of that page, 3 lines up, it says removing the employee paid portion. I'd like to add from the budget calculation. Just
We still have to pay it.
the calculation. And that's all I had. Any other comments or amendments for December 16 minutes?
Nope. I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Were both of you gone?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we approve
Okay,
them?
roll call vote.
Only 3 of us?
Gabby?
Abstain. I was absent.
Can we approve with only 3 of us?
I don't know, because it's not a quorum.
Jack, can we approve the minutes with only 3 of us who were present?
I think I count as present.
So there's 5 of us here tonight, so if we have a 3,
But they weren't at the meeting.
right. Is
I
3
guess.
yeses enough to? I think it is, because it's
Okay.
a quorum, it's a majority of the present,
Okay.
It's a majority
of the present quorum. Okay. So roll call vote, I'm an aye.
Kat?
I abstain.
Gabby?
Abstain.
And I'm an aye. And Jack?
And I'm an aye.
All right.
And it's accepted. And I'd like to open the minutes for December 9 to correct a line on page 2, about in the middle.
Okay, hang on, let me find that one, if you would give me a moment.
Didn't hear what you said.
Just give me a moment to pull that up, please.
Yeah, it's one we talked about
Yep.
earlier. In the middle of that page, it says currently have 9 cars and are in the process of getting rid of 6 others. And I'd like to replace that with just a statement that says there are 9 vehicles in current use.
And by way of explanation, we checked with Lieutenant Doty, and that was just a misprint on my part. There were not 6 vehicles to get
I was
rid
like,
of.
I don't think we're getting rid of
There
6
was-
vehicles.
I could have swore that's what he said, but anyway, there was 1, and I
Gotcha.
think that's already happened, so.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so if that change is okay, then we'll have to do a roll call vote here again.
Let me see who.
Is it easier for you to call the roll, or do you want me to?
I can call it in order of how we have it. So Jennifer,
Yes, I.
Kat, you were here for that one. Gabby, you were not here for
Abstain.
that one. I'm an I. Jack,
And I'm an aye.
okay. Perfect.
So then just to get it into the record, I'd like to read what essentially vehicles. And this is, again, what you and I talked about earlier.
Yep.
There are 9 vehicles in current use, including 4 patrol cars used daily, 1 cruiser for details as a backup vehicle, 1 K9 cruiser, 1 vehicle assigned to Lieutenant Doty, 1 vehicle for the supervisors, and 1 pickup truck used for drug enforcement and training. There will be no additional vehicles added. However, they would like to have the cruisers on a replacement schedule. And that is the essence of what Lieutenant Doty wrote me on January 9th. So that can appear in our minutes for this meeting.
You want that whole statement in tonight's minutes?
Yes,
Okay.
and I think you have it.
Yep.
Already. Okay. That brings us to the committee updates. And Jen, do you have anything besides the
budget.
budget change?
Yeah, I had made an announcement at Select Board last week, but happy to remake it here, that we are very happy that we will have a new town administrator starting next Monday, Andrea Hansen, who's coming to us from the town of Candia with experience as a town administrator. Monday is a holiday, so she'll be just getting settled and setting up her office that day. And then for Tuesday will be a regular day of business. And we are very, very excited to have her joining us and welcome anyone from the public to come in and say hi to her over time. So I think that was our big announcement from the Select Board.
Great. Okay, anything else before we get to the budgets?
I don't think so.
Okay, I just have a question. We're going to cut budgets here, it looks like significantly. If things, we don't expect it to happen, but if things go sideways, I presume we will look to the capital reserve funds and impact fees to absorb the shock. Are there other accounts that are kind of a safety cushion that the select board recognized, or is that pretty much it?
No, I think your gut feeling is correct, that if we had a budgetary expense come before us that we were worried we could not pay for out of the budget, we would look to see if it was appropriate for impact fees. We would look for things like the police detail fund, the ambulance funds. Those are other funds that we can use for spending. But it is important to remember that we can't spend above the budget. So like we can't go above our bottom line budget. So if we really got into a situation where we did not have enough money to fund the operation of the town, we would have to go through that process of like an emergency town meeting, I believe. When the select board was making these cuts, we purposely did not cut every dollar and every cent that we could, because I really think it's important to have a budget that anticipates that things could go sideways, that we could have really bad weather, that we could have legal expenses, that we could have unexpected things happen in town. We could have, for example, our front end loader die, which just happened last week. So we tried to leave a buffer, and I think it's really important that we continue to communicate to the public that not only is it okay that we underspend our budget every year in general, that's by design because we have safety cushions in there. And when we do underspend our budget, that extra money that's in the reserve, in our reserve fund, is then eligible to be used to pay down taxes. So it goes back to the taxpayers. And so I think that we tried to make as hefty a cut as we could while still leaving us a little bit of wiggle room, because certainly I don't want us to get to the point where we overspend our budget. I don't think any of us want that to occur. So we tried to be as harsh as we could with our cuts while not leaving us so bare boned that we were likely to get into an emergency.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we open all budgets for review, and then ask you to lead us budget by budget through the budget document list that you issued today.
Sure.
Can we get a second?
Second.
I'll let you call the roll.
Okay, I was waiting. Jen?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Michelle? Aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you.
So I guess I'm looking to the BudCom for, this is 26 budgets that have been modified. I highlighted the bottom line of each budget. So there's 26 line items. Those are the actual numbers that this group will need to approve. If you look on this document, column 5 is what had initially been approved, and then column 6 is the new suggestion. So I didn't highlight every single change, but I think they jump out at you. So I'm happy to either answer questions about the changes or give like a brief summary of the changes, but this is a 19-page document. So my gut feeling is this group is generally going to be in favor of our cuts, which equal up to over $319,000. But if you want questions answered, I'll just sort of go by you guys how much information you want for each one of these budgets. Does that sound good? Yeah, okay. So the first budget that we have is executive office. We made some cuts there where we could. One of our select board members does not take a salary from select board, so that was decreased. We also decreased just some small line items like recruitment expenses, advertising, things that looking at prior year's spending, we thought we could get away with trimming. So that brought our budget down lower than year prior budget from 25,005, which was level funded from the year prior, down to 20,905.
Motion.
Can I make a comment, please?
Sure.
So I am more than ecstatic to see the work that you guys did to bring these down. I did go through this myself kind of with a fine-tooth comb, and I'll just raise some lines in some of these budgets. I know that you have left some padding in some lines for the overall budget, but just other things that I saw that I thought were kind of overfunded for the actuals for the year.
Sure.
In this budget, it was really the physicals. I assume that's just for new employees, and I didn't know if we would really have that.
We actually discussed that at select board. We had cut that, Letty and I, and Andy Artemovich asked us to put it back up because his understanding was that the fire department physicals are more costly. And if we are looking to hire a deputy and or 2 lieutenants, that he was worried we would overspend that line.
Okay.
So that was one that we actually reversed at our meeting. But yeah, we had originally made that cut as well. So I think, Jack, you made a motion?
I made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Kat.
So there's a motion and a second for $20,905 for executive office.
Jen?
Michelle, you want to call the roll?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
I'm an aye.
Okay.
2, 3, 5, 1. Okay. The next budget is town administrator. This was an adjustment for the pay of our new administrator, which is going to be a bit lower than the projected pay for our prior administrator. So what you see here is just payroll, FICA, Medicare, and retirement changes that flow down from that. And that are the major changes here that drop that budget from 135,066 to 121,942.
Jen, does that take into consideration the time where no town administrator was paid?
We didn't particularly take that into consideration because she's starting the third week of January.
Okay.
So technically, I guess we could have whittled out 3 weeks of pay,
Right.
but we were like, let's just keep it a clean number
Okay.
because her salary is a clean, even number.
Okay.
But we did not discount it for those 3 weeks of the year when she was not here yet.
So then the only line I looked at in that category would be the professional training. I know that the new person coming in is, well, actually, I don't know, is she certified? A certified TA or?
I know she has her master's, but I don't know for sure whether she's done like that separate training course. Not sure
Okay.
off the top of my head.
So I didn't know if that would be a line that could potentially be reduced as well.
I think that was one that we left, like a lot of other lines, that we were like, that's not a huge number, and we don't want to dissuade any training of our employees. So the select board had just left that one where it was. Any other questions about this? Anyone
Is
want
there
to
a
make a
motion
motion?
for 121,942?
Motion by Gabby.
Is there a second?
Cat, second.
We have a motion and a second.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Jack, there's 3 people in the audience. If any of you have anything to say about any of these budgets as we're going, just give a shout. That one in particular, Liz? Or going forward? Brian, we believe, is going to come late, and Alina has the flu. Jack is attending remotely.
Okay. We just decided to leave that line as is, Liz, as I just explained.
Okay, Jack, we can go on to, what's the next one?
Town clerk.
Town clerk.
Town clerk, election, tax collector, all of Daphne's budgets, we went to her with some suggestions and she made some modifications. She particularly was very uncomfortable with changing the convention line that we had advised to cut. Her concern is that she feels that some of the invoices for some of their conventions were maybe misapplied to a different line because these numbers don't match some of her numbers. And she felt that she had fought to be able to get those conventions for both her and her deputy, and she was worried about cutting those. So instead, she made some cuts in other places. This budget just has a very small cut in the office. 3,839, and that was after sort of compromising with Daphne on her multiple budgets.
So I will bring this up as far as some other little homework that I did. I made it pretty clear at the beginning of this budget season that I thought that raises should be limited to the 2.5% that Social Security was receiving. I would like to ask this board if anyone would be amenable to any sort of reductions in salary lines. I did go through a number of them. I know that we could probably save $10,000 to $20,000 if we reduced all of the salaries down to just 2.5%. Some of those figures I actually have, but some were a little complicated. I know town clerk and stuff, they're also increasing hours, so it wasn't as cut and dry. But I'm not going to bother giving all that information if nobody here is going to support that.
I don't support salary cuts. I think the
It's not a cut, it's just not the increase that they asked for.
right. I don't support that.
Okay.
I think that it's not a big enough number to make a significant
I would
impact.
be concerned about cutting across the board in the sense that we've worked for a few years now to bring our town employees in line with competitive compensation, and for that reason, I would be inclined to stay with the proposal that we have here.
I will respond to that there are several positions that had very high increases over the last few years, and that's another reason why I suggested this. But again, if I will have no support on that, then I won't waste anybody's time. So that's two that said no. I'm assuming you're a no, because you
I'm a
would-
no, yeah, I respect your opinion. I understand that that's your opinion, but we worked hard to try to cut other things so as not to cut employee salaries.
Duly noted.
Sure,
Sure.
go for it. Just make sure you
Thank
have the
you.
microphone.
Liz Faria, South Road. So you're making it 2.5, but you didn't mention the merit. So are you doing 2.5 and 2 merit, 3 to merit?
No, I was going to leave it at 2.5, but I was quite certain that although I spent hours working on that, this board would not support any kind of reduction, so
So it could be 3 and 1% merit or
it's a
something.
moot point, Liz. Nobody's going to support a
No,
reduction.
no, no, I'm not talking about.
It could be whatever
you were
Michelle
talking
suggests.
only about, you weren't talking about merit. Are you talking about merit in this
yes.
as well?
I was saying a 2.5%
Flat.
increase, flat.
Flat.
That was my
Not just the COLA, but the merit too.
2.5
So
flat.
you're going to be very surprised by this, but I think Daphne's office is the only one that deserves both of that. They had 5 elections. They're always open. Somebody's always here. And Daphne's elected, and she's overwhelmingly elected. So that's the only thing I think you should give the money to, the only place. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. So as presented, town clerk, the amended budget is 93,839.
Motion? Or was that a motion?
No, I was just presenting it. I'd rather not make these motions because I already have voted on them once already.
I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
I think Michelle motioned it. Jack, you can second?
I will second it then.
And Jennifer?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Michelle? Aye. Jack?
Aye.
The next one is election. And in that one, we had added a line this year for police detail. We decided that we could remove that because usually we're able to work something out with the police if it's not an official detail, and that would save us some money, and that we could figure that out down the line and save that line item. We also made, let me see, I think that was the significant change in this budget, just scanning through. Yes, so that dropped this budget from 9301 to 6552.
I think the other line was the supervisor. It went, oh, never mind, sorry.
That went down
from
because
last
of
year.
much fewer election, just numerically. Yeah, that was a prior
The other
decrease.
lines were advertising and general supplies.
Okay.
So that new amended budget would be 6552.
Motion.
Is there a motion for 6552
Yep, Gabby.
and a second?
This is Kat. Yes, I'll second.
Any public comment? No, none seen. Jennifer?
Yeah, aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is tax collector. This is similar, just a very small change, one of Daphne's several budgets that she agreed with us on. It was decreasing her supply line a little bit to decrease her budget from 95,138 down to 94,938.
Motion by Gabby.
Kat, second.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next one is finance. This actually is not a decrease. This is a small increase.
Actually, the numbers on the report you sent actually had a decrease in information systems also. It wasn't marked by you, but the number was different.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, you're right. Maybe I missed that one in my highlighting. Let me just look through it really carefully. What did we change in that?
Software.
Oh, yes, my mistake. That was just a really small change that Letty had suggested. She dropped that 452 line from 26,617 to 26,000. So that just took about $617 out of that budget. Sorry
Was
that I
just a
missed that one.
contract thing? 'Cause those
That
look like
was
specific numbers?
That was us just looking what we had spent last year and thinking that we had a little buffer and just looking to trim any little spot that we could. I think some people were like, why would you bother cutting $200 here,
Yeah.
$600 there? Because we have a 19-page budget, so it all adds up. So yes, that new number there instead of 84,842 is 84,225.
Motion, anyone?
Motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. And Jennifer?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
And I'm an aye.
Thank you.
Thanks for catching that. Michelle.
Yeah, thank you for seeing that. So finance is actually a small increase, and I'll explain that. Prior, the 115 budget line had been Jillian's wages as well as the money that we used to pay an outsourced consultant to help us with our account reconciliation. That process didn't work to our ideal expectations, and our auditors also agreed that outsourcing that was not super successful for the town of Brentwood. So what this budget does is it takes that money from that line and moves it up into the treasurer line. Ambrose has now been sworn in as our new full treasurer instead of deputy treasurer, and has agreed to put in some extra hours to bring that reconciliation in-house rather than outsourcing it. And we had agreed to a salary of $32,000 for him for this 1 year as sort of a 1 year stopgap as we figure out some of that reconciliation. We're looking to update accounting software, so that line may drop back down as the hours for treasurer maybe are able to contract when we get some new software that speeds us up. So this was sort of a 1 year placeholder. And so what you'll see is we decreased the second line, we moved the money up to the first line, and then there was just a small adjustment to get that salary to $32,000. And then there was a trickle down because moving it in-house means we have to pay FICA, Medicare, et cetera. So that budget goes just up slightly from 122,745 to 125,790.
So you have the treasurer. Do you still have a bookkeeper / clerk, or you
That's
have an
Jillian.
assistant?
Yeah.
Okay. And no assistant, so it's just those two people working in that department? For that
Correct.
department? Thank you.
Correct. Yep. And no longer that third person that we were contracting from MRI, just bringing that in-house. Other questions I can answer for anybody about that?
I have one.
Sure, Liz?
I have actually two. What was the previous salary
Of who?
of the treasurer that left that was only
You
10
can see
hours
it
a
right
week?
there, about
Well,
$12,000.
I don't have it.
Oh, sorry, $12,000.
So it's going up $20,000.
Correct.
Okay. And I thought Jillian was the assistant to, whatever you call it, assistant.
Town administrator.
She is, but she's considered a bookkeeper, so she just lives in this line because mostly what she does is payroll, accounts payable that is considered bookkeeping rather than, she does some town administrator things too. You could put her in either budget. She just happens to live historically in this budget.
I would think next year we should move her back where she
We-
belongs.
We could. This is how it was when I started my work on the select board, so we just left it where it was.
So her thing is bookkeeper,
It says bookkeeper / clerk in the line item.
and this is, what's the name of the whole thing? Finance?
Finance.
Since none of us, I mean, you might have it. Was it in the packet?
I don't know if this has been, I don't know if Jack posted this or anybody posted this online yet.
I don't, Jack, did you post
It's the
this?
exact same numbers we
updated?
voted on last week at select board.
I know, but I've been at the hospital. I didn't have time to check
Okay.
everything.
If it's not up, I'll put it up tonight.
Thank you so much.
Liz,
Um,
I do
are you-
agree
are
at
you
some
asking-
point it
Did I
should be moved.
post this
I-
document?
I can't hear.
Yes, that is the question, Jack.
No.
Probably
I
not.
thought-
Okay,
I thought as soon as we went through it,
Yep,
that it would be worthy of posting.
we'll get it up.
Okay.
Very good.
So Jillian is only in this budget. She's not.
She's not
Any
anywhere
other
else.
budget.
Yep, this is her entire salary and benefits is in this budget for
And
her.
what
health.
is that, since we don't have it?
The wage line is 59,000. The FICA Medicare for both of them together is 6,962. New Hampshire retirement is 7,553.
So the real advantage here is bringing the treasurer's position back into the town office as opposed to
Yeah, really the reconciliation duties, bringing those back in-house. We had, during COVID, we had eliminated a position from finance and had tried to outsource that. Initially, it had appeared to be working fairly well, but as time went on, it became clear that it really wasn't meeting our needs, and the auditors agreed that it wasn't really serving our best interests, so we have made a decision to bring that back in-house.
I'll make a motion for 125,790.
And we have no deputy treasurer since he moved up, right?
Correct, that's an open position.
Is it open or is it just gone?
It's open. There's a motion from Jack?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
So
If
who else,
not,
just housekeeping, who else can sign a check then? Don't we ha-
Right now,
wasn't it the
I
deputy?
can.
Okay,
Because when our treasurer left, Ambrose had me sign on as an emergency backup.
okay.
And then if we appoint a deputy, they will be able to as well. So we will have several people, and then we can, it's just take some work and legwork with the bank if we need to have some emergency people in the future.
Yep.
We have a
Pat,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
and I'm an aye.
Thank you.
One note, Jen, I do think in the future it would be helpful, just all the work that we're doing this year, to put Jillian in with the town clerk.
We certainly
Versus-
could. I think it just depends how you view
Well,
the
I think-
bulk of
I
her
think-
work.
And maybe
right?
this is not the ideal future, but it sounds like with the software development and to just delineate finance from town clerk, I think that's like probably a pretty good segregation of duties.
Sure, we could have some
in
discussion about that.
finance.
Yeah.
Future discussions.
Yep.
In town admin, not
Yeah, it's town
clerk.
clerks and
Yes,
Daphne's.
sorry,
It's
sorry.
hard. Yeah, the
Yeah,
clerk,
yeah.
I think the clerk word is confusing. I think we'll have to really talk about that. I think the administrative assistant to the town administrator looks very different in different towns.
Right.
And in this town, that person really does do a lot of bookkeeping, but maybe with a software update, that would change. So I think all of that's kind of on the table for discussion, and we're looking forward to having a conversation between our treasurer, our new TA, and Jillian, and other people in town about, as we transition software, what some of the duties may shift over
Right.
time.
Yeah, and technically, it also depends, but you would separate bookkeeping from the act of payroll
Sure.
and et cetera. So,
Sure. Yep,
No, for future.
yep, gotcha.
When is the software supposed to roll out?
We haven't even picked which one we're going to yet, so TBD. But we do have the money in a fund, so as soon as possible. The next budget on here is Budget Committee, which, if no one objects, we cut down to $67. We did leave $1 for secretary wages, which Michelle waives, and $1 for FICA Medicare, just in case we end up needing to change that in the future. And we left the $65 for professional training. I think that was Letty's suggestion, potentially to pay for any interested BudCom members to go to the NHMA conference. But we did drop that budget from $50 to $500 down to $67.
Motion.
second.
Jen?
We have a motion and a second.
Oops.
If there's no further discussion, we'll do a roll call.
Jen?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you.
And I would, another year, we may want to reverse that, but for now, we've gone with it.
Yep, that's why we left $1. We have multiple people in town who waive their salary. And so rather than zeroing it out, we leave it at $1 to give ourselves wiggle room if those people change their mind.
Okay, legal.
Okay, legal, we just made a small change. The engineering and surveying line was underspent significantly. That's always a potential cost, but we felt safe dropping that down to 500. So that drops that budget from 37,127 down to $34,002.
Is that on a rotating or on a schedule, the surveying?
No, this is like,
something
my
else?
understanding is if we had to pay for like a plot of land to be surveyed because of a complaint or a lawsuit or something,
Gotcha.
that, so it's a sort of, you might need to pay this at some
And we
point.
could look back. and
I don't
it
know, I
probably
can't
has-
speak to why it was set at 36.25. I mean,
Right.
that's way before my time. but we felt that we have wiggle room in the budget, and that was probably one we could safely trim.
I believe we're having volunteers do the perambulations. Is that
Right.
getting
That's a
done?
different.
That's in a different budget under conservation, I believe.
Okay.
I'll make
Okay.
the motion
I'll second.
for
Okay, we
third.
have a motion and a second. Roll call vote,
Jennifer,
Aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
I'm an aye, Jack,
and I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next is planning board.
oh,
Why isn't insurance?
Oh, that one, you guys already approved the 582,725, which is why I
Okay.
didn't highlight it. The original one is before we made
Oh.
the adjustment to the way that this budget was handled with the employee. So that went in there as the original, but you guys, I checked that one, you've already approved it. So planning board, we made a couple of changes. Chiefly, we dropped the engineering and surveying line. We dropped the legal service line. These are similar to that prior cut, that these are potential costs that were not spent this year. So we felt comfortable, but, would leave a buffer in some other places. The master plan line was removed because the goal of that committee is to create a capital reserve fund for the entire amount to do the whole master plan, rather than trying to do these small little bites at several chapters a year. And so that money is not needed in the budget, because the thought is that will move to a CRF. And those are the major changes that we made, which dropped this budget from 126,104 to 114,707.
Jen, are you saying that there's a potential for that to be a warrant for a CRF versus?
It is going
in-
to be a warrant. They're already planning to make a
Okay.
warrant to start a CRF
Okay.
and to potentially ask for those funds that were unspent this year to roll into that fund without raising taxes for next year. So to use unspent funds from this year, because they
Okay.
spent $78 out of that $8,500.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, was that to do with the master plan that you were just speaking?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Is there a motion for 114,707?
Motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call,
Jennifer,
Aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
I'm an aye, Jack,
I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next is ZBA. We trimmed that budget. It is historically, they have minimal spending. Their only spending this year was on advertising and notices, so we left that line. We cut their legal services line, which once again is a hypothetical cost, and we dropped that budget from 1,401 to 404.
Motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for 404. Roll
Jennifer,
call,
I'm an aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
I'm an aye, Jack,
and I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next is government buildings. This is actually a budget that we had previously discussed at BudCom making some changes to, and we have gone ahead and made some of those changes. I don't know if they actually line up to the numbers that were suggested here, but essentially the changes that we made here, we cut our heating, oil, and gas line a little bit. We cut the fire alarm contract because it was a little bit unclear to us what that was referring to. And clearly, whatever contract we have was paid out of a different line. So we cut that line. We cut our telephone service contract because it looked to be overfunded. And then in the section of the repairs, so BudCom will remember that these are relatively new budget lines that have been added over the past few years to allow for small repairs that would be outside of the capital reserve fund. We did decide to cut most of those. So as you look through, we cut the fire station from 15,000 down to 8,000. We cut the highway buildings from 5,000 to 1,000. We cut rec from 7,500 to 2,500. Just kind of based on some of the spending that had occurred in those lines. We didn't change the land maintenance because that was only a $1,000 budget and we were making some pretty big cuts otherwise, so we left that as a buffer. And those changes drop our entire budget from 108,071 down to 82,302.
Just one comment on that.
Sure.
The $8,500 that I asked y'all to cut at a meeting that I couldn't get a second. Be interested to see if you support this one.
Yeah, well, I stand by that. I think these are reasonable things to have in the budget. But at that point, we didn't know about like the trash increases and some other increases. So yeah, I voted no then, and I'm going to vote no, yes tonight. Yep, because things have
Do you want to
changed.
make that motion?
I
Oh, you
can.
didn't want to make.
I would prefer not to because I'm already presenting them.
I
but-
can motion.
$7,1 to $82,302.
Did anyone second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
Jennifer?
If there's no further discussion, roll
Um,
call vote.
I'm an aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
And I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next is cemetery. We just made a small change here to their land maintenance line that was underspent, dropping it from 2,000 to 1,000, dropping their entire budget from 14,740 to 13,740.
Motion. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Was that?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, roll call vote.
Jennifer?
I'm an aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
And I'm an aye.
Thank you. Insurance is a decrease, but you had already approved that change. And next is general government. We decreased travel and mileage. We made a small decrease to the grant writer line. We decreased postage based on spending, office supplies based on spending, for a total decrease from 122,936 down to 111,826.
I am curious about the town communications line.
That is for the Brentwood newsletter, plus a buffer for any other mailers that we might have to do as a town.
Is there a reason that the selectmen haven't necessarily been supportive of the newsletter? Is there a change of heart? Why
Well,
are they?
either it went in the budget or it would have to be a warrant
Mhm.
again, and we didn't feel it was necessary to have a warrant, so we put it into the budget
Fair enough.
because we have a current agreement with the newsletter.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
Is there a motion for 111,826?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Or if there's no further discussion, roll call vote.
Public comment, please?
Sure. Can you just come to the microphone? Or I think you can use the stand-up one as well.
You can try it out, see if it works.
Yeah, this will be your first time, so try it out. See if it works.
Jim Burlow, Scrabble Road. The grant writers line, what is that? What's the total amount?
It went from 43,110 down to 40,000 even. That's the new town-wide grant writer that we hired earlier this year, Nancy. I think. her
And
name's
what have they done? What have they performed?
She has just started in the past couple of months, and she is working on multiple different grants with different departments. I don't have that information right at my fingertips.
Grants are monies that need to be raised through taxation, and then we get reimbursed for these grants?
Depends, there's all different kind of grants. Sometimes there's matching grants, sometimes there's percentage grants where we pay a percent and the grant pays a percent. Sometimes they're 100% covered grants, just
And
depends on the type.
Grants are essentially monies derived through taxation. So where
Depends who the grantor is.
Could be
99% of the time.
nonprofit.
Sometimes the feds, sometimes the
is,
state.
With Trump coming into office and Department of Government Efficiency coming online, there's a strong indication that grants and/or all this foolishness will dry up. Should we not wait 1 year before we fund this, just to see how everything turns out without spending $43,000 this year in the hope, in the gamble, in the pray that we will get fruits for our $43,000 or $40,000?
Sure, I hear you.
I would like
We've
to
already
disagree
hired
with
this
Jim.
individual, so we're not going to change that now.
I would like to disagree, respectfully disagree. This is not the hill you want to die on. Grant writers are very hard to get, and they probably at least double, if not quadruple, what they bring in for the,
Sure.
this is not the hill.
And I'm sure if it doesn't work out, then we will have to reassess that position in the town employees.
She's not full-time though, right? She doesn't
No.
have benefits or anything like that?
No, she's not full-time.
Okay, Jennifer?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next is Police Department. They were very helpful with us and actually cut more than we asked them to, chiefly by decreasing their wages line based on the assumption that now that they are relatively fully staffed, that they will be able to decrease use of part-timers. So they decreased the wages, and therefore that trickled down a bit to FICA, Medicare, and retirement. So that's where you see the changes in this budget. That drops their total budget from $1,437,246 down to $1,400,987.
Just noting that the retirement line alone was over $250,000 with that cut.
Yep.
Which is substantial.
Yep, it sure is. Any further
Is there any
questions?
further discussion, or is there a motion for 1,400,987?
I'll motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jen,
We have a motion, and I think we have a second. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
what I
Gabby.
heard.
comments? No. All right, Jennifer?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next is Fire Department, and as this BudCom well knows, this is the budget that is going up the most significantly in our budget this year. We did have a productive, if spirited, conversation with Fire Department administration about trying to cut this budget. It does make them a little nervous, but I thank them for being willing and able to make some changes to this budget. So they worked with us to decrease their overtime line. They decreased their training line. They decreased their heating oil gas line, their dues and subscription line, and their vehicle fuel oil line, as well as equipment purchases line, for a total decrease in the realm of about $40,000, which budget from $1,087,661 to $1,256,541.
I do have a couple of comments on this one. The protective gear,
Yes.
if I recall, from our site visit, they have to buy new stuff every like 5 years or something, is that?
There's like a replacement cycle, yeah, and they
Um,
ideally have 2 sets for each firefighter, because if it's, has to go through the mandated washing process, they need a backup.
Could we possibly set up a CRF for that?
You know, we kind of briefly talked about that, whether that would be a good idea, and I do think that's something we may want to think about. It's sort of a more regular kind of annual cost as opposed to like the radios, which was like every 5 or 10 years or something. So I think you could go both ways on that, but certainly might be worth talking with the community if they preferred to do it that way.
My other question is the radio repairs line. Didn't we just buy new radios? Why do we have $4,000 in the repair line?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that, not being in their department or knowing
And
what
I-
that
50
bill
There were
was.
50 new radios,
And I-
$68,000.
Didn't we also set up a CRF for those?
For the purchase of them, yes, we did.
Purchase.
Yep, yep, this is for repairs.
Okay, but again, we just spent a boatload of money on
I
those.
agree.
I'm not sure why we would need a,
They
money
spent
in that.
$3,996 this year, that's all I can tell you. I don't have those invoices in front of me. So they asked not to change that line, but change those others that I mentioned.
Why wouldn't they be under warranty?
Sorry, Liz, I don't have the answer to that.
my other comment on this budget is, my feeling would be that we take the new deputy out of the salary line and have that be a warrant article as well. Historically, this town votes on new employees in these departments by warrant article. Would I get any support on that one?
I'm curious, just about more information on that.
this makes these cuts, I mean, based on our discussion with fire, these cuts make me nervous. I think fire is, based on what Chief was here saying and based on other things happening in, our neighboring towns and everything, I feel like cutting fire even
So
more.
I'm not talking about cutting it, I'm just saying that that position should be a warrant article as opposed to just being rolled into the budget.
I'm just curious, like, why do you think that historically voting positions on a warrant article is better than getting the budget from the department head?
Because I think it's a huge investment, and I think the people of the town should be able to choose that, like they have in the past. And I'll be perfectly honest, I'm sure they would vote for it. They usually
I would assume
do.
so, yeah. And Select Board
but
did
I just-
discuss this because Select Board was in favor of putting the warrant article for the rec assistant. And so the reason we did not take this one out of the budget is this person is in kind of emergent need to be a successor for Chief Byrd. And so we felt that this was really kind of a non-negotiable budgetary inclusion because we need to have a succession plan for the chief. And we know that the chief has expressed his desire to retire as soon as he is able to. So that is the thinking. I think if there had been a different time frame, the select board likely would have been comfortable with going to the public. But given that we expect that retirement is coming sooner rather than later, that is why the select board felt comfortable putting it in the budget. But I hear you. And we do generally agree that making a big change to a department is one opportunity to potentially do it as a warrant, but we chose not to in this case.
I have another comment too. I don't think it should be taken out of the budget. I think it's a necessity because he does want to retire. But I had a question about the fire gear.
Sure.
There's the fire gear that's toxic.
Yeah, this is different.
is
There's
different.
the
What-
PFAS-free gear that's being funded, 24,000 out of ARPA, and they're asking to encumber the other, I think it's around 24,000 for that. This is either getting second sets of gear, replacement helmets, et cetera. This is sort of more their routine gear. And the amount for the PFAS-free only provided, I want to say, one set of gear for each firefighter when in a ideal situation they need two. So
But
this was
there's,
to
right,
supplement.
but there's only something like 4 firefighters, and the gear was something like 14 sets, and it was $48,000, right? 24,
Yeah, I think that's to provide gear for the part-time and per diem workers
The-
who
the
need gear
per-
that fits them.
There's a what we need to know, I guess, more specifically is the, not the per diem, is the volunteers who get paid when or per diem who get paid when they come out. There's something like 50 or no, it's not that much, 30 something, but most of them don't come out. So I would like more accurate numbers.
I would suspect the chief could supply that to you, Liz.
Okay. I have tried to get it before, just.
Having had a couple of discussions with the chief in the last few months, I fully understand his anxiety to stabilize the fire department and retire. I think it's important that we place the manpower that are needed in order to do that.
Can't get it.
And Gabby, to your point about being nervous cutting this budget, I think that's why we went to them. We had an in-person meeting with them, and they actually made some modifications to some of our suggestions and changed things a little bit. They were willing, knowing that their budget was going up by originally, I think, 28%, they were willing to try to trim where they could. And so I do feel safe with these cuts, knowing that there's always a little bit of wiggle room in the budget, and this brings their increase down to 24.74. So they were comfortable with those changes, although, of course, knowing that we're trying to stabilize that department, I can understand your slight anxiety at this feeling. But they also wanted to be part of the multi-departmental effort to try to decrease the budget. And so I think that's an important thing for them to take part in.
I can imagine them being one of the largest increases
Right.
overall.
Yeah, so they're trying to take cuts too, just like everybody. So it's kind of it was a group effort here.
Right.
Public comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a number of equipment items that appear to be under the purview of the revolving ambulance fund's ability to pay for them. When the wording was modified in 2009, I know it was vague, but it specifically mentioned equipment for the fire department.
Yep.
You're talking about ARPA funds, you're talking about all these things that I would argue are able to be culled, this money is able to be culled from the revolving ambulance fund rather than placed in this budget.
Yeah, I hear you. The two most recent pieces of equipment purchase that the select board approved both came out of that ambulance fund, the nitrous oxide machines and the CPR machine. I'd be more than happy to, in the next budget season, discuss sort of the optimal use of that fund. I can't tell you for sure what the $6,400 of equipment that came out of this budget was, because I don't have that in front of me. But my understanding, since I've been on the board, is a lot of the big purchases have come out of that ambulance fund, including the two most recent that we approved. They're not in this budget. But yes, I exactly hear what you're saying. I think we should probably clarify what our goal balance fund is.
I would recommend the budget committee seriously consider removing then those few items that are equipment related that the revolving ambulance fund can pick up as a way to help the taxpayer this season.
Maybe we can find out what's in that fund. I know you can't tonight, but
Yeah, it has a decent amount of money in it. My understanding is that that fund is also used to buy new ambulances, that was the goal, the original goal of it, and it was expanded to include equipment, and that was what we have used it for. So we've actually discussed at the behind the scenes select board that we actually feel that's one area that we could all benefit from clarity on what the target goal of that fund is and how much money we need to have in there for a new ambulance versus what we might have available for other equipment. So I think Mr. Burlow's comments are true. I just do not necessarily think that we should change this budget in front of us tonight based on the fact that their equipment line is only $6,000 in this budget and that
Only?
they've already cut, I think, almost about 41,000 out of this budget. So they were very cooperative with us and did not suggest cutting that line. So I want to respect them on that.
If there's no further discussion, is there a motion for $1,256,541?
Can I just make one more comment?
Sure.
I believe, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on the fire visits, I don't think it was this year, it might have been last year, that Chief Byrd had mentioned one of their, maybe it was Katrina, maybe it was somebody else, worked, like, when they got a new fire truck, the last time they got it was from a grant, or maybe that was an ambulance.
There was
Do you
a
remember that?
grant that the chief was hoping to be able to nail down for, I think, a ladder truck that is looking like it is not going to pan out. That, I think that might be that was a very expensive, like
Yeah,
$1.5
they're
million
like $2
truck.
million, yeah.
Yes, that he recently told us is not looking like it's going to happen.
Okay.
But that is a separate, the ambulance fund, I think, is specifically for ambulance purchases, was its
I
original.
just wanted to make a
I
comment.
think there's a
that
separate
sometimes-
fire, I want to say
Right.
there's a separate fire vehicle, CRF.
Right, that the grant writer, like that came up, is that having a separate grant writer could help identify more
Sure.
grants like that could save us from spending 1.5
Right.
or $2 million on a fire truck. So
Exactly.
that's just the comment I wanted to make while we're here. Motion, did we already make a motion?
you did. I need a
I did.
second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Cap.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call vote.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Cap?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Track loss management.
I know.
Okay.
You have to go.
Gabby was just
In 3
indicating
minutes.
she's gonna need to leave very, very shortly.
Yeah.
We'll still have a quorum, right?
Yes,
with
we
4
will
of
with
us.
him
Okay.
on there.
All right, so let's go quick. Joint loss management.
I don't think you will have a quorum. I think they have to be here. There's
Um,
7 people on the BudCom.
He counts as part of the quorum.
I don't think so.
Voted
Let me check.
in.
I think Liz is right. I think you have to have
I'll let
a
it-
physical quorum, and then you
I
can
mean,
have remote
if we
people.
think we can get through this in 10 minutes.
Let's do our best.
Okay.
So joint loss is $241 down to $2. They essentially never spend their budget, so we just left 2 placeholders.
Motion.
Second.
The motion and a second.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
I'm an aye, Jack.
I'm an aye.
Okay, thank you. Next is emergency management. This is one that there's a lot of theoretical costs in here, so we made some small trims.
Actually, the code enforcement is different? Did we already
Enforcement.
approve the one right before
Think
emergency management?
code enforcement.
I don't know off the top of my head if that's
just
just where we already.
looking.
Grabbing part.
Oh,
of
that's
joint loss
because
and
of joint loss.
that.
Yeah, that's just the
Oh, it's
bottom
the
line.
combined line.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So emergency management, we cut the general supplies line and the telephone communication line. This is the same type of thing, that those are theoretical costs, and obviously if we had an emergency, there's some wiggle room in the budget to cover those. And so Rick Murphy felt okay with these changes from 6376 down to 4627.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
I'm an aye, Jack.
I'm an aye.
Great. Next one's really quick, mosquito control. I just pulled the actual contract, and it's $1,000 lower than what was quoted originally in the prelim budget, so I dropped that from $30,200 to $29,200.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll
Public
call vote.
comment?
Sure.
I'm just gonna throw this out. I could sell you a rock for $20,000 that will get you as much mosquito repellent throughout the town. Is there any proof that what we're spending money on does something? Is there some
I think
sort
we-
of data that can be had that says, hey, for our $30,000 a year, because we're not spraying every piece of wetland in Brentwood. And if
I think, as
mosquitoes-
I think I mentioned at the last time you asked this question, that multiple surrounding towns had detection of mosquito-borne illnesses as well as human cases, and Brentwood did not. And I consider that a success, but I think that's a hard question to answer. And I think if you felt strongly that you do not think mosquito control should be part of our budget, you could certainly put a warrant to have that taken out of our future budget and see if the public is in agreement.
But do you know what the spraying does to?
It's not spraying, it's mostly larvicidal treatment of water pools in town.
Okay, well, there's a water pool and a new house going in next to me in the trail, and there's water everywhere there. And including under my driveway, I want to know what the larval, whatever that stuff is, does to the water.
I'm sure that Dragon Mosquito Control could probably answer those questions for you, Liz.
They don't usually come to town meeting.
Well, you could reach out to them, or you could go through our new town administrator once she starts, if you have a specific question.
For $30,000, I'll pass.
Okay?
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Jennifer,
Yes, aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
I'm an aye, Jack.
I'm an aye.
Thank you. Next is highway. I went over some decreases with Wayne. He was comfortable with making some of these decreases because some of his like heating oil, gas prices had been escalated during COVID, and then those budgets had just been level funded and never really decreased back down. So we have changes here in electric, in heating oil, gas, in vehicle fuel oil, hand tools, signs, and care of trees. Most of those adjustments were based on prior year spending. He was in agreement with those, and it drops his budget from 836,137 down to 812,637. So that actually puts this year's budget about 0.75% lower than last year's budget.
Does that include insulating the new building? Or is that?
I don't believe that would be a budget line item. No, that would probably be either under government buildings or something. We have not that first speak to that. Do not think that would be reflected in this budget.
Okay, so he reviewed this in any event.
Yes.
There is a line for highway and government buildings, so it would probably
Yeah.
be in that line.
Yeah. Other questions?
Is there a motion for 812, 637 for highway?
All motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jennifer?
Hi.
Cap?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Okay, thank you. Next is the second part of Wayne's budget, snow and ice control. The major changes here is that, as I think you guys are aware of, we've been working with Wayne to try to significantly trim his sand, salt, and cold patch line, which has historically been budgeted quite high and essentially never spent. So working with him, we had originally decreased it from 181 down to 90,000. We're now recommending it be decreased down to 45,000. The reason for that is that he has extra funds left over from this year, which under his current salt contract that we are going to encumber. So he's going to have a buffer from this year. And then in general, we spend around 50-ish thousand on this the past couple of years. So he felt comfortable, as long as he had that buffer of encumbrance, to drop this to 45,000. We do have a winter maintenance capital reserve fund that has about $10,000 or $12,000 in it that we are looking to probably in the future put some money in, but did not feel that we had to do that this year. And Wayne was amenable to therefore cutting this budget from 142,410 down to 96,784.
Motion?
So that 45,000, and is that what's encumbered, or is there another amount that's?
No, there's another amount. He has to get us the actual dollar amount. It's whatever is left in his current year contract. But I think it's actually a number bigger than 45,000. And so we will, this is a line that we definitely don't want to mess up because of the safety for Brentwood residents. And so we feel pretty comfortable with the encumbrance plus the 45,000 that we should be in a really safe place. And then we do have that additional 10 or 12,000 in the winter emergency fund that we could supplement as well if we had like a winter Armageddon situation.
Is there a motion?
I did.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Cap?
A reluctant aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. I almost said Michelle. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just got to bring this up.
Go ahead.
On Tuesday, the select board met. And on Tuesday, I believe you violated RSA 32.7 about encumbrances. Encumbrances have to be had by the select board before the end of the fiscal year. If Wayne's got this money and theoretically you're not able to encumber it,
We were
I bring this up because the
following,
budget committee may be assuming that the Wayne money that you said is going to be encumbered or could be, might not be able to be.
we have not closed out our fiscal year yet. And in prior years, encumbrances went into January. So we were following that prior pattern. We can certainly check with legal counsel. And if there is a problem, we could amend this budget.
It
'Cause this
doesn't
is-
matter because he doesn't have a separate budget anymore. You rolled him into your budget. So if he's short, you have to pay from the.
What do you mean? He doesn't have a
You-
separate
he
budget?
doesn't
Wayne
have
has a
highway
separate budget.
Isn't it, aren't you rolled, didn't you roll his
Not all
budget into the operating budget as?
We
opposed
rolled
to-
the paving of roads. That's totally separate. We put the paving of roads from a warrant into the budget because that's just an annual expense. That's totally separate. Still part of his budget.
And I do believe that just because you haven't finished your accounting books, et cetera,
I hear you. I
at-
think
at
we
the end
should
of your
clarify
fiscal
that.
year, short of contracts that were signed before the end of the fiscal
Right.
year, you're still obligated, you can pay money there.
Right,
But as
which
far
is
as your
what
fiscal
this
year, I think you need an
is.
answer way sooner than later because that's going to affect
Yep, I hear you.
what the budget committee's just heard about this, along with a whole bunch of other encumbrances.
Can't you table some stuff? Do you have the correct numbers?
We're going on prior pattern and prior year, but so I would prefer that BudCom approves this, but I do think that's a valid question, and we should sort of reopen it if we need to. This is really what the other encumbrances don't make as big, other than maybe the fire equipment, are not that significant.
Well, we just already approved it. Do we want to change that?
I would suggest we leave it as is, and we can always reopen it, unless the BudCom feels strongly about that.
We can
I would
reopen
like to continue, but follow up on that answer. It does seem that without a town administrator and without timely bookkeeping, that I'm assuming, it'd be hard to report encumbrances before year end without knowing what the balance of your
Correct.
lines
I
are.
think that was my understanding of why they could be done in January, was because you're not even done with all your December invoices yet, so you actually don't know the numerical ability. But Jim's point is valid, that we need to make sure we're following the law. And so if we find out that there's a problem there, we will certainly reopen a couple of budgets if needed.
Yeah, we have time.
Our intention is to do the right thing and follow the law, and we're following prior patterns from our prior TA. But if we are making a mistake, we will remedy that.
Moving on, recycling.
Okay, recycling. So this change is the change of using ARPA. So as I told you guys at our last meeting, my recommendation to my board was to split the remainder of ARPA money in the next 2 years of recycling. And so that dropped the recycling from 143,050 to 99,421.
I saw that there was also a spirited maybe conversation about trash and recycling last.
Oh, there always is. Yeah, there's people who have
which-
strong feelings
which
about
I
recycling.
have strong feelings about as
Sure.
well. But I, think that we need trash and recycling pickup. And January 13th is not the time to make changes to our whole trash and recycling process.
Yep.
In
And certainly if
budget
the
season.
public wants to change this, we, when this contract is up, we could certainly reassess whether we want to do curbside trash and or recycling. That is always up for discussion in the public.
So my comment would be, unfortunately, we're now tied in for another 5 years.
Correct.
But I think there should be a staunch effort on the part of the town to reduce, reuse, try other
Also-
options
Mhm.
instead of
Sorry.
just throwing
Sure.
everything away, because that seems to be what our
Agreed.
society does.
Of course.
I'd like to point out that I did try to start an energy and environmental committee that was turned down with disapproval by some other committees in this town.
I remember when you were
specifically
wanted to talk about composting and things like that.
composting, trash, and recycling. So just that it's coming up again. And
Yep.
it'd be great.
Anybody who feels strongly should make their voices heard over the next few years if they want to make a big change.
I have a question about the trash barrels that I don't get it. So there's.
Liz, that doesn't, we have a board member who needs to
Oh, I'm
leave,
sorry.
and that's really not a budgetary
Yeah.
issue, right?
Yeah, well, it
It
is
doesn't
not.
impact this number that we're voting on right now, 99,421.
Yeah, but if you can't move the barrels because you have nobody in your family that can move the barrels, how?
That's
that
a,
does-
That's not.
that's a separate discussion list that we can have a different
I
time.
thought we had
I
to
need
get
a
onto
motion.
that board. Get on board with
I need
that.
a motion.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll call.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
Aye.
Thank you. We're almost done, Gabby, so you can get out of here. We have just a couple more changes. Welfare, we just made a small decrease to the direct assistance line because traditionally we try to refer people in need to other sources of care, and that line is generally underspent. So we dropped that a little bit from 4,500 to 3,000, which drops this budget from 20,407 to 18,907.
I'm curious, and maybe I missed this the first time around. I'm curious. This year actuals were 17 for community assistance were 17,357, and it was
Yes, we dropped that at Becky Dunham's request because the requests that came in were lower than a year prior,
okay.
and they were able to fund all requests with
Okay.
$13,000 this year. So we trimmed that at a
Okay,
prior
great.
meeting.
Because I
like for the town to be able to
Yep.
help its
They felt that they
community.
were good for this year with 13,000.
What is the status of the welfare person?
We have been inquiring and trying to figure out whether that person wants to retire. So that is sort of an open issue that we are figuring out, because I think we probably need to find a new welfare director, but that's sort of an ongoing discussion.
Well, that salary line has been spent, so I'm just
Yes.
curious if she.
Oh, no,
was
she
actually
has-
Active.
Yes, yes, we have helped multiple town residents this year, specifically with like emergency lodging and things like that.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, roll call.
Jennifer?
Yes, aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you. The last one that we have is debt service. This is on principal, generally put it down to 50 using impact fees. This year, we'd like to pay it down to 40 using impact fees. And that will leave sufficient impact fees to do that again the following year. And that fund generally replenishes to some degree. So that would decrease this budget from 225,100 to 215,100.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's no further discussion,
Okay, Jennifer?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Jack?
I'm an aye.
Thank you. So all of those cuts that you just approved equal a total of 319,631. That limits our budget down. Our original first pass budget was 7,146,674. It drops it to 6,827,043, which drops our percentage from just under 14% down to 8.39%. And the total budget goes up by just over $500,000, the bulk of that being police, fire, trash recycling, town clerk hour increase, et cetera. I had sent out a list to the BudCom of what those increases are. So the select board was very happy. We were trying to get over a $200,000 increase, and we were able to get over 300,000.
Decrease.
And we're hoping that this decrease, did I say increase?
Yeah.
And we're hoping that the public will appreciate and work with us on this new number.
Is there anything, thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that needs to be voted on before I?
Did we want to?
Thank you to Jen, thank you to you and Letty for
Of course.
that line-by-line work, and maybe others that from the select board.
Jack, do you feel strongly that we need to vote on the school warrants because Gabby needs to go? She has an appointment.
I'm 20 minutes late.
She really needs to go. Can we bump that?
I'd like to actually do it, so, let's
Well,
Gabby needs to leave, Jack. She's already
go to that next.
stayed over her time.
we won't have a quorum to vote on it, Jack. Gabby needs to leave.
Thank you.
We do have a meeting on the 27th.
Yes.
I was kind of thinking maybe we wouldn't need that, but, Michelle, are you thinking we should push it off to the 27th,
Yes.
the school vote?
Because then I can also follow up with the encumbrance discussion that day. If we need to make any other changes, we can do it on the 27th.
Okay, then we'll delay the school warrant unless Brian shows up. We'll plan that for the 27th.
Okay.
The next item I had, which really doesn't require any discussion,
So,
is the flyer that Steph put together
so we no longer have a quorum.
for the public hearing. And I don't know if there's any comment at this point. It's already been distributed, but in any event,
Jack, we're going to have to adjourn the meeting because we no longer have a quorum, so we can't
you wanna say
vote on anything further.
okay.
Well, if we can-
Then
It looks like we have an audience member who'd like to make a comment, which is, I think we could probably do before adjourning.
Yes.
okay, so the next meeting then will be on the 27th, 6 o'clock at the town hall.
Great.
Yes.
And is there any word on warrant articles at this point?
There are a few that have gone through select board for preliminary approval, but we need some help from our new town administrator next week about the exact wording and to get the exact technical wording approved by, I think, DRA. And so there's none that have been officially formally voted on yet by the select board, but there's several that are in works.
Okay, as soon as you have those, could you move them along to
Yep.
me so I can distribute them and
Definitely.
also work with them? I'm trying to put together the presentation.
Definitely.
So, okay.
Doug has a comment.
see you
Go
all
ahead, Doug.
27th, and hopefully see more on the 27th.
Okay, Doug just wants to make a quick comment, Jack.
I'm sorry?
Doug Finnan wants to make a quick comment.
I still didn't understand.
Doug Finnan wants to make a comment.
Okay.
I don't know the exact RSA. My understanding is that if you have to overspend your budget, there's a whole process that you go through. You have to hold an emergency town meeting to allow for additional appropriations. I luckily haven't had to research it, but there is a whole legal process that you can go through in an emergency if you need to overspend your budget. Yeah, we're very much hoping not to do that. Very much so. Thank you.
Thank you all. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
I'll second that.
All in
Your motion?
favor?
Aye.
Motion.
Technically, we
Can
can't
close
even
the
vote,
meeting?
but we're going to consider Gabby's exodus to
Motion-
mean that
motion
she
to
was in
adjourn.
agreement with adjourning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack.
All right, meeting
So you
ended
just
at
hit
7:35.
the same button that you hit to turn it on, and then that light should go off. And then you're good. You don't have to do anything else. Yep.